I find the Air Force Chief claim very hard to accept for the reason that yesterday I spoke with a Russian expert, a person who understands everything that there is to know about S-400. And he confirmed to me that yes, S-400 has the capability to engage 36 targets, but kill, to conclusively say that a kill has been done, is not possible. He simply refuses to talk about the losses of the Indian Air Force fighters if they were there or they were not there. And this is what he calls fanciful stories, Manohar Kanya.
Tell me, is it credible for the Air Force chief to refuse to talk about India's losses? Particularly when he's giving details of alleged Pakistani losses. Is it credible for him not to talk about Indian losses?
See, he can decide and the government can decide what they want. The reality is, what does, or the issue here is, what does the world make of it? That is more important. What does the world make of Operation Sindoor, the 4 years war, of which the air campaign or the attacks, air attacks, were most important? That is important for India.
So you're
That's what
saying,
I'm saying.
so you're saying that by dismissing India's losses as Manohar Kahania, he's not necessarily convincing the world that there were none.
No, they are not convinced at all because no evidence, nothing has been given, or he doesn't even want to talk about it.
In fact, yes,
In fact, he goes to the extent of saying that it is good that they should keep guessing how many of our aircraft, though, if they think that 15 were downed, then they will cater for 15 less in their assessment when next they fight. I mean, I don't expect an Indian Air Force chief to say all these things.
it did not impress you, that answer.
No, not at all. I mean, not befitting a Air Force chief. Not at all.
So it's not befitting an Air Force chief.
Yeah, not at all.
A naked man has little to no influence on society. In clothes like this, you step out and you know that you're going to turn heads. You know that you're going to create an impression of a person who cares deeply about the way they look and has a finer eye for detail. And, that seems to be the Bombay Shirt Company way. What I really love about these clothes, and I really mean this, is this looks like a man has walked into the room. I like that. It's nice.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. On Friday, the Air Force chief claimed that India had downed 12 or 13 Pakistani planes, including 9 or 10 fighter jets, such as F-16s and JF-17s. That announcement is the key focus of today's interview. What sort of evidence is it based upon? Why is this only being revealed now, 5 months after Operation Sindoor effectively ended? And how will it be received internationally? Equally importantly, what about India's own losses during Operation Sindoor? The Air Force chief dismissed them as Manohar Kahania. Was he right to do so? Joining me now is the editor of Force magazine, Pravin Sawhney. Pravin Sawhney, on Friday, the Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, claimed that during Operation Sindoor, India downed 12 or 13 Pakistani planes, both in air and on the ground, including 9 or 10 fighter jets such as F-16s and JF-17s, a C-130 aircraft, and perhaps one, possibly two, airborne early warning aircraft. So let me start by asking, how do you respond to this claim made by the Air Force Chief?
Good morning, Karan. I find the Air Force Chief claim very hard to accept for the reason that yesterday I spoke with a Russian expert, a person who understands everything that there is to know about S-400. And he confirmed to me that yes, S-400 has the capability to engage 36 targets, but kill, to conclusively say that a kill has been done, is not possible. And then he said, perhaps if the aircraft is very slow moving, yes, to a certain extent, it could be said that yes, it has been killed, it has been shot down, but certainly not in the case of fighters. Therefore, Karan, if you noticed, the Air Force Chief has been very careful in his statement. What he has said is that I have evidence that one kill was done by S-400. He said our long range missile. It was done at a distance of 300 kilometers, and that aircraft was a AEW&C aircraft, which is a slow moving aircraft. As far as the fighters are concerned, the new claim that he has made this time of 5 fighters, JF-17 and F-16, as you just repeated, that he said is what our system tells us. So, as far as the Russian expert is concerned, he confirmed to me that it is not possible. So, this is the part of the part done by the S-400. Now, if you want me to
Can I
answer,
pause you at that moment and let's understand what the Russian expert told you? The
yeah,
Russian expert told you that it is possible for an S-400 to engage with fighter jets,
yeah.
but it is not possible to tell whether you have killed them or not. In other words, that is the unknown part of it, whether we succeeded in downing those planes or not.
Absolutely, this is what he confirmed.
So this means that when the Air Force Chief says that we had one long range strike more than 300 kilometers, which happened to be an early warning or a signals intelligent aircraft, that part may well be correct.
That's
But when
right.
it goes on to add that 5 high-tech fighters between F-16 and J-17 were also killed, that we simply don't know.
And that is the reason that the Air Force Chief was also hedging his bets by saying that as our system tells us, which means he's not taken the ownership by saying we know this happened, there was evidence. He put the entire thing on the system.
This is another very important point you're making. The Air Force Chief himself, as you said, hedged his bets. His phrase was, this is what our system tells us. In other words, he's relying upon intelligence that he has. He hasn't provided to the public, at any rate, conclusive, clear proof.
Karan, this is not about intelligence, this is about the system. We are right now talking only about the S-400 system. So these kills have been claimed to be made by the S-400 system, and these 5 fighters that he spoke for the first time on the 3rd of October, the new claim that he has made, on that he has said that our system tells us, he's referring to the S-400 system here.
And the Russian has pointed out to you that the system cannot conclusively tell you whether those 5 fighters were killed. It can tell you they were engaged, but it cannot confirm kill.
Precisely.
And therefore, when the air chief says, this is what our system tells us, those who understand what the capacity of that system is will immediately know this is an assumption being made by us.
Yes, that's correct.
The word assumption is correct.
That's correct. The word assumption is correct.
Now, let me bring up a second point with you. What do you make of the fact that although the air chief in vague terms referred to shooting down Pakistani planes in a lecture that he gave in August, these more specific details were only made public almost exactly 5 months after the effective end of Operation Sindoor. In other words, he's waited 5 months to give these specific details to us. What do you make of that?
You're talking of the ground kills.
That's
The
right.
Yeah. So you see that he has attributed to the intelligence reports, and what he has said is that we have damaged or killed 4 to 5 F-16 aircraft which were there for maintenance at one of the air bases, and also we have damaged or killed one AEW&C and one C-130 aircraft of the Pakistan Air Force, which were there in the hangars or on the tarmac. This is what he has said. Now, we have the capability. We have air to ground missiles which can do that. But whether it has been done, that is not conclusive. That is why the chief has attributed that to intelligence report, and what intelligence reports are there, we do not know, neither he has specified them.
But again, you're saying a very important thing. India undoubtedly has the capability to shoot down Pakistani planes on the ground or in hangars. But whether we actually did that, we just don't know.
Precisely. And let me add a little further. If it actually had happened that the F-16s, which were there for maintenance, as the chief said, they had been damaged further, then certainly the Americans would have known about it, because Americans have a end user monitoring agreement with Pakistan, and the Americans would have spoken about it.
Now, again, you're making another very important point. America has an end user monitoring agreement with Pakistan. If F-16s had been shot down either in air or on the ground, the Americans would have known about it.
Precisely.
The Americans have not said a word about it so far. What does that silence tell us?
Well, I find it very difficult then to believe. I don't know what to make of the Air Force Chief's statement, because he has only taken ownership for one kill, and that is the S-400 at a range of 300 kilometers, which, as I said, the Russian expert confirmed is possible to know that it was a kill. Rest everything he has either attributed to the systems tell us or to the intelligence reports tell us.
So it's either attributed to what the system tells us, and as the Russian expert told you, the system cannot tell you whether there was a kill. And secondly, it's attributed to intelligence, but we don't know how good that intelligence is because it hasn't been shared with us.
Precisely.
In other words, the Air Force Chief is asking us to believe what he says because he's saying it. He's not providing clear proof or evidence of it.
No, he's not saying that we believe that. That is up to us whether we want to believe or not. What he's certainly saying is he's not taking ownership for those kills. That yes, the Indian Air Force has done that. He's not doing that.
Now, in videos that you have frequently put out, forgive me. Now, in videos that you have frequently put out as editor of Force magazine, you've repeatedly stressed that the world has been impressed by Pakistan's performance during Operation Sindoor. Now, today, will the Air Force Chief's claims change or alter that impression in India's favor?
So you see, the world has seen two things of this engagement, air engagement. The first thing they noticed was that air to air engagement, which is the key mission of any air force to acquire air supremacy, that was done only by the Pakistan Air Force. The Indian Air Force has not, at least I am not aware of, done any air to air engagements. That is one. Now, air to air engagements are a difficult thing to do, and especially with the multi domain operation, a new concept which has been explained by the Pakistan Air Force to the world. So, that is all credible, and this is the reason that even the Pakistan Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Babar, he was immediately invited in Washington to explain how they had done the multi-domain operations, and the PLAF chief, PLA Air Force chief, also visited the air headquarters in Pakistan to get a briefing on how it was done. That's point number one. Point number two, Karan, is very important. And the second point is that on the 16th of September, Lieutenant General Khalid Kidwai, who today is a senior advisor of the National Command Authority of Pakistan, and he is a very well respected General of the Pakistan military. He said on 16 September in Islamabad in a press conference that we have evidence, and he provided the evidence of four Rafales being down. And the evidence given by him are the numbers which are there on the airframe on the tail. And the numbers given by him are BS0001, BS0021, BS0022, and BS027. So he's given those numbers, and along with that, he has claimed that the total was seven aircraft, but for four, the remaining three he said were Sukhoi 30, MiG 29, and Mirage 2000, but he has not given evidence for that. So, the very fact that this evidence was given, and then the Pakistan Prime Minister made this point in his speech at the United Nations recently, saying that seven fighters of the Indian Air Force, they were killed or they were downed by the Pakistan Air Force. I think that the Indian side should have reacted to at least the evidence provided by Khalid, which Indian side did not do.
First of all, let me ask you this. How good is the evidence provided by Khalid? I know you've recited just now the numbers on the tail fin of the alleged Rafales that were shot down, all four of those numbers you've recited. How good is that evidence? How will the world respond to that evidence?
So, as far as the world is concerned, the very fact that Indians have kept quiet about it, so they will accept that as true.
In other words, India's silence will be taken as acceptance that it's true.
Well, that is the way the world will see it. That here is a man who's saying that these are the numbers of the four Rafale which were shot down, but India hasn't reacted to that because it's a very important thing.
So the impression that you've stressed frequently in your videos that Pakistan's performance during Operation Sindoor was impressive and good, that impression will continue. It hasn't been altered by what the air chief has said on Friday.
No, as I said, the world has noticed the air-to-air engagements, which is the primary mission of any air force, and they've seen the Pakistan Air Force do it. This is what the world has understood. So this is what they still understand. That has not changed at all.
Now, in contrast to what the air chief said about Pakistan's losses, where he went into considerable details, he maintained that claims that Pakistan has shot down Indian aircraft is Manohar Kahaniya. He completely ignored what Lieutenant General Khalid Kidwai made public on the 16th of September at a press conference in Islamabad. What do you make of this silence about India's own losses?
See, Indian Air Force Chief is responsible for all the activities of the Indian Air Force, and therefore, before he said Manohar Kania, there was another question that was asked of him by the same reporter. And the question was, what was asked of him was that CDS had made a claim that losses are not important, implying that something had been lost in Singapore. He made the claim. And after that, we know even one of the, our naval advisors in Indonesia also made a claim. So claims have been made that there have been losses. But the Air Force chief said that I do not want to. You can check with the CDS. As far as I am concerned, these are all fancy stories. These are Manohar Kahaniyas. He didn't want to comment
can I
on
just
that at
interrupt
all.
there? Can I interrupt there? It's not just that General Chauhan, the Chief of Defense Staff, in an interview in Singapore, accepted that India had lost planes but refused to specify how many on the grounds that the number is not important. But also Air Marshal Bharti, the Director General of Air Operations, in very early days of May, also accepted that India had lost planes, but he also refused to specify how many. So now, when the Air Force Chief claims this is all Manohar Kahaniya, he's contradicting both Air Marshal Bharti and General Chauhan.
See, as I said, the buck stops at the desk of the Indian Air Force chief as far as all activities of Indian Air Force are concerned. So he not wanting to comment on anything, I find it very strange. He simply refuses to talk about the losses of the Indian Air Force fighters, if they were there or they were not there. And this is what he calls fanciful stories, Manohar Kania.
Tell me, Is it credible for the Air Force chief to refuse to talk about India's losses? Particularly when he's giving details of alleged Pakistani losses. Is it credible for him not to talk about Indian losses?
See, he can decide and the government can decide what they want. The reality is, what does, or the issue here is, what does the world make of it? That is more important. What does the world make of Operation Sindoor, the 4 years war, of which the air campaign or the attacks, air attacks, were most important? That is important for India.
So you're
And
saying,
concern.
so you're saying that by dismissing India's losses as Manohar Kahaniya, he's not necessarily convincing the world that there were none.
No, they are not convinced at all because no evidence, nothing has been given, or he doesn't even want to talk about it.
In fact, yes,
In fact, he goes to the extent of saying that it is good that they should keep guessing how many of our aircraft, though, if they think that 15 were downed, then they will cater for 15 less in their assessment when next they fight. I mean, I don't expect an Indian Air Force chief to say all these things.
it did not impress you, that answer.
No, not at all. I mean, not befitting a Air Force chief. Not at all.
So it's not befitting an Air Force chief.
Yeah, not at all.
Finally, my last question. There is no doubt that in the first instance, the Air Force chief was addressing a domestic audience. But there's also no doubt that what he said will be picked up internationally. How will it go down in important countries like China, America, Russia, France, and the UK, all of whom are members, permanent members of the UN Security Council?
See, Karan, that we've already seen the evidence based on largely the outcome of Operation Sindoor. Pakistan's military profile, geopolitical profile has shot up. This is one of the key reasons why on the 17th of September, there was a Pakistan Saudi Arabia strategic mutual defense agreement, and this is the reason that there are other countries today in the Middle East, including Qatar, including Turkey, including Egypt, which are also keen to get into this agreement. And this is the reason that today all the other five members of the GCC also are keen to get in here. And this is the reason that Iran is actually quite happy with this agreement signed between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. In my assessment, if Operation Sindoor had not happened and the outcome of the Operation Sindoor as understood by the world would have been different, all this to Pakistan's benefit would not have come to pass.
And what you're also suggesting is that the Air Force chief's claims of shooting down 12 to 13 Pakistani planes, including 9 to 10 fighter jets such as F-16s and JF-17s, that claim is not going to impress the world.
See, if indeed the evidence was there, as the Air Force chief, he started the press conference for saying by saying that I have to give you what all has happened in the last 1 year, and the most important thing is Operation Sindoor. He did not even mention about the air war at all. It was only in the question answer session that this came up. So if the evidence was there, obviously the world was waiting for the air chief to say what has happened in the air war. I mean, you are giving to India and more than that to the world the capabilities of the Indian Air Force. So it was necessary that he should have himself spoken about rather than wait for a reporter to ask a question.
Pravin Sawhney, I think that makes the point pretty clearly. Thank you very much for helping us understand and analyze what the Air Force chief said. And as you pointed out, I'm repeating, I find the Air Force chief's claim very hard to accept. That is the critical message you're giving the audience. Take care.
That's right. Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
A naked man has little to no influence on society. In clothes like this, you step out and you know that you're going to turn heads. You know that you're going to create an impression of a person who cares deeply about the way they look and has a finer eye for detail. And, you know, that seems to be the Bombay Shirt Company way. What I really love about these clothes, and I really mean this, is this looks like a man has walked into the room. I like that. You know, it's nice.